What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Ramblin Rams podcast. This is episode 23. We've had plenty of episodes in the off season. Off season cannot go by any slower, it feels like. But Jordan, how we doing?
Feeling good, feeling good. Saw a little Rams tidbit. We re-signed Laryl Murchison, who's been around
Mhm.
for like the past 4 years. So, just a small note. Still waiting to see if we figure out the wide receiver three, but I think we got a cool video planned out for today while we're still waiting on some Rams news.
Yeah, so today, as you read by the title on this video, we're going to be revealing our favorite Rams of all time, but we're not just going to be, you know, it's not just a little list of our favorite Rams. We're going to be doing it in different categories. We are going to be doing, first, we're going to be doing our favorite five non-Rams. So, favorite five football players to never play for the Rams, pretty self-explanatory. Our favorite five Rams on defense ever. Our favorite five Rams running backs of all time, favorite five Rams wide receivers of all time, favorite five Rams quarterbacks of all time, and then, of course, at the end, we'll just reveal our favorite five Rams of all time in any position. So, uh, I think I know a few, like, I could probably name a few of your top five favorite Rams just through talking about the Rams on this podcast for the last few months, but I'm curious to see what order you have them in, but I'm not going to
Okay.
guess because I don't want to spoil anything. So we'll start out with non-Rams first, because if you're not a Ram, like, do we even really care about you? Like, get out of here. But now we'll start with non-Rams first, and then we'll do all the Rams ones after that. You want to go first with your number five?
No, you started off. You started off. I'm curious to see who you got.
Okay, okay. My non-Rams one is interesting to say the least. Very interesting. At number five, by the way, nobody click off this video just because of the name I'm about to say. But at number five, I do have three-time Super Bowl champion Patrick Mahomes. I
Wow.
only have him on here because without Patrick Mahomes, the 49ers would have the most Super Bowls of all time. And I will explain.
Ah.
Patrick Mahomes beat them in the Super Bowl twice, and they have five. If it weren't for him, they'd probably have seven, and that would be most all time. So without Patrick Mahomes, we'd be living in a very different and significantly worse football world with the 49ers being considered the greatest franchise of all time. And I never want to see the Niners win a Super Bowl, and I would have already seen them win two without Patrick Mahomes, so I do have him at number five. I don't I'm not like a huge Patrick Mahomes guy, but I have nothing but respect for him because A, he's a great player, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and B, he kills the 49ers, so good for him.
Right, no, yeah, I love that answer, honestly. I was unexpected, but yeah, all love to Mahomes for beating up on the 49ers and got the Eagles once in the Super Bowl, so
Them
I
too.
like that answer.
Them too.
I got another Texas quarterback at number five. You know, I live in Dallas, so I
Mhm.
got a guy I grew up watching a lot, Tony Romo, at my
Mm,
number five spot.
I like that.
A very controversial player in his career. A guy who you talk to some people, they'll tell you he's underrated all time. He was
Mhm.
a great quarterback and I think had, potential to be a Hall of Famer or Super Bowl champion if he had not suffered through so many countless injuries midway and later in his career. But yeah, Tony Romo was a great guy, undrafted quarterback, so a lot of love there. And DFW legend, really cool guy. I've never met him, but I've heard he's a really nice guy. So shout out Tony Romo.
For some reason, when you said another Texas quarterback, I thought you were going to say Troy Aikman, but I was like, I don't even know if you ever saw him play. So Tony
No, no,
Romo.
I didn't.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say because like Tony Romo makes a lot more sense. I always like Tony Romo, but he is not in my top five, but I do like Tony Romo. I like that answer. At number four, I have Michigan Wolverines legend Aiden Hutchinson. Uh,
Oh,
I know that might not be another exactly popular top 5 favorite football player ever for Rams fans because he's a Lion. I know there's kind of a mini rivalry between us because of the Goff Stafford trade. We played each other in the playoffs a few years back, but I love Aiden Hutchinson. I actually love a few guys on that Lions team. I have Jahmyr Gibbs in fantasy. Goff was a Ram. There's a few guys on that team I really do like. There's some guys I don't like, but there are guys I like. Aiden Hutchinson's one of them. One of my favorite Michigan Wolverines ever while being at Michigan. Um, I would argue he's actually the best Michigan football player I saw play live for the
Wow.
Wolverines. Because I never saw Brady,
Right.
and he also wasn't some crazy good player at Michigan, or at least he wasn't considered that at the time because he was a 6th round pick. Um, so yeah, I'd probably say Aiden Hutchinson's the best Wolverine I've ever seen. So he's top 5 for me. He's number 4.
No, I like that. He's a total beast. Good answer. Number 4, I'm sticking with Cowboys quarterback, someone I never grew up watching, but as a huge NFL fan, I got Roger Staubach, number 4.
Hmm,
I got love for Troy Aikman too,
that's sick.
honorable mention, but I got Roger Staubach, in my opinion, the best Dallas Cowboys quarterback of all time.
Hmm,
Roger the Dodger, Captain America, Captain Comeback. So, he
wow.
was 1970s Hall of Fame first team all decade quarterback. So just a little fun Roger Staubach fact for you. Even though Terry Bradshaw got more Super Bowls than the MVP in the 70s, any NFL historian will tell you Roger Staubach was the man back in the 70s, and definitely a local legend around here. Everyone knows Roger Staubach, and yeah, I think definitely still to this day the best Cowboys quarterback, despite playing all the way back then, and a veteran. So all love there. Shout out to U.S. Navy veteran Roger Staubach, number 4.
I love that answer because if this was if this was a baseball podcast, all 5 of my favorite non-Dodgers would be all like guys from like the 40s and 50s because like I feel like when it comes to sports, I like those old-timey players. I actually don't have any of those in my non-Rams now that I think about it. I just don't think I was thinking about like guys before my time. I was thinking of guys from like my childhood mostly, but I love that
Yeah.
answer and I'm curious to see what your answer is to this question. Where, you don't have to give me an exact number, but where would you rank Roger Staubach all time on quarterbacks?
Yeah, so I did make my like top 20
That's right.
quarterback list. So I don't remember specifically where I had him ranked. I think I had him like 12 or 13, somewhere
Mm.
around there. I had him above Matthew Stafford and my guy Kurt Warner, just unbiasedly. I think he is someone who kind of gets lost to history of how truly great he was. If memory suits me, I believe he won the Heisman Trophy too. He won the Super Bowl. I believe he won Super Bowl MVP in 1971. If I remember that right as well, don't quote me officially on that, but yeah, he was definitely one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Um, I don't know. Fun Roger Staubach story, really quick. He kind of coined that term, Hail Mary. Fun
That's
fact.
right.
He threw it to Drew Pearson, and he's a Catholic. I'm a big Christian myself, and he was like, Hail Mary. He said the prayer. I don't remember it specifically, but yeah, he said Hail Mary, and that's kind of how that whole thing started. He threw it to Drew Pearson, another Cowboys Hall of Fame legend, and destroyed some Vikings dreams all the way back in
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's awesome. I love that you know that. That's sick. Speaking of the Vikings, I my guy at number 3, any guesses?
Adrian Peterson.
No, not
Okay,
not quite. I have number 9, JJ McCarthy.
okay, I
I thought
like
that
it.
was pretty funny putting him on there because he's been in the league for like a year. 2 if you count the first year where he was hurt. I don't really understand the hate JJ McCarthy gets. I think at Michigan, he's one of the best Michigan quarterbacks of all time, not counting anything in the NFL. Obviously, Brady's the best quarterback to come out of Michigan, but JJ McCarthy, while at Michigan, is one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best Wolverines quarterback of all time. He won a national championship there in 2023 with our guy Blake Corum. Uh, I love JJ McCarthy. I don't like that he gets so much hate and that there's a bunch of memes saying like, oh, like if someone has a bad game, they Photoshop them in a picture of JJ McCarthy. Like I hate that because he is a good player. He is a good quarterback, and I think he's a better quarterback than Kyler Murray, who is also a Viking now. I really hope JJ McCarthy wins that starting job. I don't think he's going to, but I really hope he does because he deserves to be a starter in the NFL. So I have my boy 9, JJ McCarthy, at number 3.
Yeah, I like that. Shout out your boy. I'm curious to see what happens with that whole situation because I think the Vikings would be foolish to just move on at this point and just be like, "Here, Kyler Murray, you're a starting quarterback." That's why I didn't fully understand that move. And they
Mhm.
brought Carson Wentz back, so just really weird situation going
Yeah.
on there. But number three, last Dallas Cowboy I got on my list, but I kept it in Dallas. Just one guy who I grew up watching and really loved, and a player who just was the ultimate form of consistency. And my favorite Cowboy of all time, Jason Witten, number 82, one of the best players in NFL history, in my opinion. One of the best tight ends
Wow.
ever, a true blocking tight end, and just
Right.
like it just the ultimate tight end. When you think about the position, he was the best guy about getting open, and him and Tony Romo had such a great dynamic. If you needed a play, Jason Witten was always there, and just kind of a guy who gets slept on, I think, a little bit in top 5, top 10 debates with tight ends, because he's a more complete tight end than most tight ends you'll see. Gronk is a great blocker, and Kelsey is a great blocker, and he's not as good of a tight end as Travis Kelsey, but he is a better blocker than Travis Kelsey. So shout out Jason
100%.
Witten, got him number 3.
When you said another Cowboy, I was gonna stop you and say, "Can I guess?" And I was gonna guess Jason Witten, but I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
because I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't. And I was right. It was Jason Witten. I always liked Jason Witten. I I think Cowboys hate is so forced. I know I'm throwing out a lot of controversial hot takes so far, having Mahomes and Aiden Hutchinson and McCarthy on my list as a Rams fan, and now I'm saying the Cowboys hate is so forced. But I know they're definitely the most hated NFL franchise of all time. They're up there with the Steelers and Niners for the most hated. I don't really understand it. I think they're hated because adults, like parents now, grew up with them winning a lot of championships.
Right.
So they hate them because they were good. Just like how, in when most people, like around our age grow up and start families, they're going to be like, oh, we hate the Patriots in this house because the Patriots are good, or we hate the Chiefs in this house, stuff like that. Like, I think that's why people now hate the Cowboys and people have been raised to hate the Cowboys. I'll never understand it. Maybe I'm just biased because I hate the Eagles and the rivals with the Eagles. I don't know, but I I don't think there's a reason for me to hate the Cowboys. Fun fact about the Cowboys, since this is a Rams podcast, the Cowboys and Rams are the two teams to meet in the playoffs the most in NFL history.
Wow. That is a fun fact. I like that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Their last matchup was 2019. The Rams won 30 to 22.
Yes.
That Todd Gurley 40 something yard touchdown run. CJ Anderson had a good game. If you remember him, the
I
old
do
Rams running
remember
back, former
him. I
Bronco.
definitely remember him.
Yeah.
For sure.
The the Jared Goff days. But at number 2, speaking of quarterbacks, I have another former Bronco. I know we were talking about CJ Anderson, so another former Bronco, Tim Tebow. I I
Yes.
don't I know Tim Tebow, another player that's controversial, doesn't, he's not the greatest. I'm not saying he's one of the greatest players ever, but he is one of my favorites to never wear a Rams uniform. Um, for some reason, when I was younger, I've always been a Michigan fan, but the Gators were always my second favorite, and I think it was because of Tim Tebow. I just thought Tim Tebow was cool because one of my first memories of watching football, especially in the playoffs, because you got to keep in mind, growing up for me, the Rams were not good for the
Me
first,
too.
yeah, the St. Louis Rams were not good. So, of course, I was a Rams fan, but they were never in the playoffs. So, every year, I picked to root for Tim Tebow unless he was playing someone else that I'll get to for my number one. But Tim Tebow, just thought he was really cool. One of my favorite memories was that pass to I believe it was Demaryius Thomas against the Steelers in the playoffs, first play of overtime to advance to
Yeah.
play New England. Uh, one of my cool memories. I remember my dad and I were watching that game. It was a great game between the Steelers and Broncos. My dad was like, "All right, I'm gonna go grab a drink or whatever." He goes to the room, goes into the kitchen, he grabs a drink. He misses one play of overtime, and it's that touchdown pass. And I was like, I'm like 7 years old, and I'm jumping up and down. I'm like, "Dad, you missed it. The game's over." And he ran back in. He's like, "What happened?" It was like one play. And I was like, "Yeah, it was like a 80-yard touchdown pass to Demaryius Thomas." So I always thought that was cool. I always liked Tim Tebow. Uh, I always thought it was cool that he was a lefty because I there's only been so many lefty quarterbacks over the
Right.
last 10, 20 years of me watching football. So yeah, I got Tim Tebow, number two.
I love that answer for sure. Number two, I've got another quarterback guy I've talked about a lot throughout the year. Josh Allen, my guy.
Hmm.
Hopefully a future Ram. I will pray, fingers crossed, after Matthew Stafford. I don't think that's realistic. I think he'll figure it out with the Bills, and just a guy I would say in terms of talent, I think he might honestly be the most talented player in NFL history. When you just combine his ability to run the football with his ability to throw the football, he scores literally like 40 something touchdowns in every single regular season. He's the best fantasy football player of all time, and that's just
Oh
like
yeah.
a statistical fact. Like he's a guaranteed 40 touchdowns because whether he throws for 40 or so, yeah, Josh Allen, one of the craziest fantasy football players of all time, and he's never put it together in the playoffs and gotten to the Super Bowl or obviously won one. But if you look at his playoff statistics, he has insane playoff numbers, and they just have never quite figured it out. I'll kind of compare it to Peyton Manning. When I was growing up, Peyton Manning had this stigma of, oh, he couldn't win the big one, but eventually he did ended up winning a couple of Super Bowls. And I
Yeah.
think Josh Allen eventually will win one Super Bowl one of these years.
Yeah, he's one of the best quarterbacks in football right now, and according to you, he's one of the most talented, if not the most talented player in NFL history, which is definitely a hot take. But I'm not going to disagree. That's a hot take. I respect it though. I respect that. I knew Josh Allen would be on your top five list for sure. We've mentioned a few times on this podcast how much we both like him, you especially. So I'm gonna stay in the AFC East with quarterbacks for my favorite, and that is Tom Brady. Tom
Wow.
Tom Brady is one of my favorite athletes of all time, including Rams, including any sport. He's top 10 favorite athlete of all time for me. Uh, like I said, similar to Tim Tebow, the Rams were so bad and never made the playoffs when I was younger that I needed to pick someone to root for just in the playoffs. And I always picked the Patriots because I love Tom Brady so much. And he beat the Seahawks in the Super Bowl for us that one year. I know people like to not give him credit because, if they ran the ball at the one, the Seahawks probably go back to back. But Tom Brady led them down the field and gave them a 28-24 lead with about 3 minutes to go. There's no more clutch quarterback in NFL history than Tom Brady. I know our guy Matthew Stafford is up there in terms of clutch quarterbacks, but Tom Brady is definitely number one. No quarterback ever will overcome a 25-point deficit late in the third quarter in the Super Bowl like Tom Brady did. There's no way. A lot of guys would be down 28-3, hang their head and say, "Oh, I've already thrown a pick or two. I'm not having a good game. We'll get them next year." Not Tom Brady. Forces overtime, drives him down the field, no OT, wins the game. 7-time Super Bowl champion. More Super Bowl championships than any NFL franchise has ever won, which is just a ridiculous stat. If you had a list of the Super Bowl champions, you got Steelers 6, Patriots 6. Above them, Tom Brady was 7. He is one of the best athletes of all time. I know that people say, "Oh, well, he's not that athletic. He's not, some like super like fast, mobile quarterback, but he is the best quarterback of all time. He's the best football player of all time, and I have Tom Brady as my favorite football player of all time to never play for the LA Rams."
Wow. Yeah, I have the highest respect for Tom Brady, of course. I agree he's the greatest quarterback of all time for sure. Never was a Tom Brady fan just because I kind of remember I don't remember the Super Bowl where they beat us, but I have that memory of being a kid and just thinking about he stole a Super Bowl from Kurt Warner and company,
Yeah,
and then him beating us in 2018. Oh man, it's just tough for me. So shout out Tom Brady, all the respect, but yeah, not one of my favorite players. But
fair enough.
I I agree with you. My number one favorite non-Ram ever was Tim Tebow, someone you mentioned on your
Really?
list. It was,
No
yes.
way.
So
Let's go.
I was a huge Tim Tebow fan growing up. I'm not left-handed. I actually don't have the highest opinion of left-handed quarterbacks, but Tim Tebow, he never really got his full shot because he got one shot as a starter in the NFL, and he took a team that was 1-4 to the playoffs and beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. So, or it might have even been in Denver. Either way, they beat the
Mhm.
Steelers in the playoffs. So, huge, huge playoff win. And then he ends up getting replaced by Peyton Manning. So, can't fault the Broncos too much for it. But I just felt like Tim Tebow never got his fair shot.
I agree. I agree. I will never understand the Tim Tebow hate. I know he wasn't like an all-time great quarterback like Peyton Manning was, but he was a good quarterback. I remember for some reason I have this memory from when I was little of watching ESPN and they ranked all 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL and they had Tim Tebow number 32. And this was like when
Wow.
he was still on the Broncos, which made no sense to me. I was like I remember sitting there as like an 8-year-old or whatever I was saying like how is he 32nd when they were a playoff team and he won them a playoff game? How does that make
Yep.
sense? So, I never understood that, but yeah, my non-Rams list is Mahomes, Aiden Hutchinson, JJ McCarthy, Tim Tebow, and Tom Brady. You want to go over your 5 real quick?
Yeah, I had Tony Romo, Roger Staubach, Jason Witten, Josh Allen, and Tim Tebow.
Pretty interesting lists for sure, but I like them. We both had Tim Tebow. I was thinking about putting Josh Allen on here because I really do like him. Uh, I just put Mahomes over him just because Mahomes beat the Niners in the Super Bowl twice. So shout out to Mahomes. But that moves on to defense. Our 5 favorite defensive Rams of all time. You want to go first?
Sure, yeah. So starting off the list, I got a guy who was here for a very short time as a Ram.
Mhm.
One of my favorite players of all time, maybe someone I would have had on the list not for this short stint, Von Miller.
Mm,
Another former Bronco. So someone who's still around. He's actually a free agent right now, so I'd be totally open to bringing Von Miller in as just a rotational edge rusher
oh yeah.
to whatever extent, but he was a huge piece that we picked up that Super Bowl season. I remember getting Von Miller, and I was just like, once we got Von Miller and Odell, I was like, okay, I already was feeling like we're gonna win the Super Bowl, but when we did that in the middle of the year, I was like, okay, yeah, we're going to figure this out. And he was a huge piece to add, and he had a big time impact and a huge Super Bowl performance. I mean, he's arguably one of the best Super Bowl performers of all time because when the
Yeah,
Broncos lost to the Seahawks in the Super Bowl, Von Miller was hurt, so he wasn't there for that season.
that's
And
right.
then he destroys Cam Newton, wins Super Bowl MVP, and destroyed Joe Burrow in the Super Bowl as well. I think if I remember right, he had 2 sacks. So shout
Yeah.
out Von Miller.
Yeah, the Rams had 7 sacks that game. I think they tied the Super Bowl record for most sacks in a Super Bowl with 7.
Crazy.
And yeah, I think Von Miller had 2 of them. So
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that pick, and he's a free agent, like you said, so I wouldn't be opposed to the Rams, getting him on a 1 year deal, bring him back to LA, and see if he can win another ring with the Rams. So, number five, I have a St. Louis Ram, and that is the only thing I don't like about him is that he's an Ohio State Buckeye, but I do have James Laurinaitis on my list as
Okay.
number five.
Oh, I like that.
For some reason, when I was little, I always liked athletes named James because that was my name, and uh, James Laurinaitis was one of them, and he was also a great player. I know I'm a Michigan Wolverines fan, but if I had to pick a favorite Buckeye of all time, it's definitely James Laurinaitis. He was great for us. I wish he could have stuck around for longer, at least been on the Rams when I was a little bit older to be able to watch him a little bit more and appreciate him more than I did when I was 7 years old. But he is he was an incredible player, and I know you like him too. So I have him number five as my fifth favorite Rams defensive player of all time.
Yeah, I really love that pick. I didn't have him on my list, but I do have his jersey. I've worn it before on the podcast.
That's right. I remember that. That's sick.
Number four, I've got a St. Louis Ram as well. DeMarco Farr, so someone from
Hmm.
our first Super Bowl team, and he still does like work with the Rams. Commentary and
Yeah,
radio work. He does a show with like JB Long and MJD, which I really enjoy listening to. And yeah, a guy. I don't know if you've ever seen the show America's Game, but we had an
sure.
episode one. It's a docu series about every team that wins the Super Bowl, and DeMarco Farr was one of the three people they picked to interview for the documentary about our 1990 Rams Super Bowl team. And that was a big memory for me growing up watching that because I wasn't old enough to watch that Super Bowl team. So I have a lot of memories. I've watched that episode probably 5 or 10 times, and DeMarco Farr is really well spoken. I still love to hear him talk about the Rams, and he might have been the only person I feel like hurting more than me after we lost to the Seahawks. He was just absolutely devastated, and I shared that same sentiment. So I love a lifelong Ram like that.
Yeah. I love the guys like you said that, even after they're not on the team anymore, they're still rooting for the Rams. They're still pulling for them even in retirement. I think that's really cool. I know Eric Dickerson is like that, and several other guys like you always see at the games just rooting on the Rams even though they haven't played for them in forever. So that's a great pick. Speaking of picks, someone with one of my favorite interceptions of all time to send us to Super Bowl 53, I have John Johnson at number
Ooh,
four. Uh,
okay.
one of my favorite Rams moments of all time is that interception, and then he did that celly or whatever he
Yeah.
did after picking off Drew Brees. I know that game is very controversial. We've talked about a lot of controversial things so far in this episode, but that is probably the most controversial one of them all. That hit that definitely wasn't pass interference, for sure wasn't. No chance. But Rams deserved to win that game at the end of the day, and John Johnson was a huge part of it. I think he had a second stint with the Rams for a year,
You did.
and
Mm-hmm.
he was part of the 2020 Rams defense. Who that defense was really elite, and I really wish that team could have gone further than they did. They lost in the divisional round to Green Bay that year. That was Goff's last year as a Ram. I think no shade to Jared Goff. I love him, but that was his worst year as a Ram in 2020. If we made the Stafford for Goff trade a year earlier, I think we could be seeing the Rams in the Super Bowl that year with Matthew Stafford because that defense was the best in the league, and their biggest problem that year was the quarterback situation. Jared Goff
Yeah.
was not it, even though, I love him, but he did not have a good year. Then John Wolford came in. John Wolford was, John Wolford. So if we had Matthew Stafford a year before, who knows? Maybe we win back-to-back Super Bowls. I know
Yeah.
it's a stretch, but you never know. So John Johnson, my point is, was a very big part of that defense, and I have him at number four, my favorite defensive Ram of all time.
Oh, I like that choice for sure. Okay. Number three, I kind of cheated on this one because I was split picking between two edge rushers from my time growing up watching the Rams. So at number three, I got a tie with Chris Long slash Robert Quinn. So kind of
Mm.
two guys who were around the same time and played the same position. And we always, like you've mentioned, we sucked our whole time growing up as
Yeah.
kids watching the Rams. I wasn't old enough to watch the glory days just quite. So when we did, were young and had that good defense with right before Aaron Donald. Even then, we had Chris Long and Robert Quinn, who were big time playmakers, big time sack guys, and just two guys I really enjoyed watching. I've always loved watching defense, and Robert Quinn was especially was a really talented and unique player, a guy who stuck around in the league for a long time. Never did quite find his way back onto the Rams, but was at his best with the Rams. Had like
Mhm.
19 sacks one year and was just a really great player. So shout out Chris Long and Robert Quinn.
I definitely thought about putting Robert Quinn on this list. If I had to, he'd probably be at number six on here. If we had a top 10, he'd definitely be on it. I had him just outside my top five. But at number three for me, this guy was only around for a year, and it was the last year of his career. I would have put him on. He would have been my second favorite non-Ram of all time, but he played a year with the Rams, so I couldn't. This is Green Bay Packers legend Clay Matthews. He was my favorite player growing up. Him and Tom Brady were my favorite players. I dreamed of him being a Ram one day, and we finally got him. But it was the last year of his career, and you know he wasn't in his prime anymore. And the Rams just weren't that good that year. They went 9-7. It was the year after we lost in the Super Bowl. But yeah, I always loved Clay Matthews. I thought he was awesome. He was one of the best defensive players in football when I was younger. Uh, you know, he was a great player. I really enjoyed that old Packers team. This is when I liked Rodgers before he became a head case. I liked him. I liked Clay Matthews, Jordy Nelson,
Yeah.
AJ Hawk, Eddie Lacy. There were a lot of fun players on the team, and Clay Matthews was one of them. So I have him at number three.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Clay Matthews when we picked him up. I loved that pickup. That was a fun little stint he had with us for sure.
Mm,
Number two, I got a guy, another free agent, Jalen Ramsey. We've talked endlessly about Jalen Ramsey and his impact when we acquired him. Goes without saying, and I've mentioned before, we don't win the Super Bowl without Jalen Ramsey, and
mm,
I have a Jalen Ramsey jersey. Funny enough, I had this feeling when we acquired him that we all know who Jalen Ramsey was. He was the best corner in football by far.
mm.
And I ordered a Jalen Ramsey jersey immediately the second we acquired him. I ordered one right away. And he didn't let me down. He helped deliver us a Super Bowl and was a great player. It's definitely someone I always think about when I think about that Super Bowl team.
You have one of the St. Louis colors, right? Number 20?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I literally before they even sold it on like NFL Shop, I went in and custom shop and like put number 20
That's
and
sick.
Ramsey on the back and like custom player ordered it. That's how
That's
excited I
sick.
was when we got him for sure.
That is sick. I love that. I also have a Ramsey jersey, but number five with like this jersey, the current
Okay.
one. And I also have him at number two, my second favorite
Okay.
defensive Ram of all time. I loved the days where he was the best corner in the league. He was, we had one of the best defenses in the league, like in 2020, like I was saying a few minutes ago. Him, Aaron Donald, John Johnson, that defense was just really fun to watch. They had a great team. I think Ernest Jones was on that defense as well. We had a lot of talent defensively. We still do, but we had a lot of talent on that defense, and Jalen Ramsey was like, you know, one of the best defensive players in football. He was the best corner, and that beef he had with DK Metcalf every time we played the Seahawks was so entertaining because he would lock him up every single time, and then the camera would pan DK Metcalf throwing something on the sideline because he knew he couldn't get open. That was awesome. I loved those days. Jalen Ramsey, my second favorite defensive player of all time.
I like it. I've got a gut feeling we might have the same guy for number one,
Yeah.
and it's our guy Aaron Donald, the best player in our franchise's history. I think it goes without saying. Arguably the best player of all time. I don't think that's a hot take. He
No.
dominated the NFL in a way that just doesn't happen, and he did it being undersized, and that's why he slipped in the draft because if you go back even to the Pitt days and watch his draft tape, I've seen it posted because we're in draft season right now. The dude was unbelievably dominant at Pitt and comes in and just immediately makes a Pro Bowl every year, three defensive players of the years. He got his Super Bowl. The only thing that I love to hate Aaron Donald for is you left me too soon, big guy. I needed you around these last couple of years, and I know for a fact things would have been differently
Oh yeah.
uh, in Philadelphia and this past year in Seattle. Had 99 been there, they would have had a much harder time winning those games. But he got us our ring, so I'll let the beast lie where he may. And shout out Aaron Donald.
I also have Aaron Donald at number one, and I like what you said about things being differently the last 2 years if he was still a Ram. That's the only complaint I have about Aaron Donald ever is that if he didn't retire so soon, this might be a stretch, but I think if Aaron Donald was on this team the last 2 years and never retired, I think we would have at least been in the Super Bowl the last 2 years. I
Yeah.
don't think that's crazy to say. I think we beat the Eagles because Jared Verse had a great game against the Eagles, and if we had him alongside Aaron Donald in that game, Jalen Hurts would have been peeing his pants, and there's no chance we lose that game. Now you go to this year. If Sam Darnold had to go against Aaron Donald and Jared Verse together, and Byron Young, Nate Landman, a few of just the very talented guys on this Rams defense, I don't think we lose. And then I don't think we
Right.
lose to the Patriots or the Chiefs in the last two Super Bowls. This is obviously a stretch, of course, but who knows? Maybe we win back to back Super Bowls if Aaron Donald doesn't retire. So that's the only complaint I have about Aaron Donald. But he is the greatest Ram of all time, not just defensively, but of all time. And yeah, we both have him as our favorite defensive Ram ever. Uh, Moving on to running backs. You want to go first?
Here, I'll let you lead off with running backs.
All right. At number five, I have Kyron Williams. And I have not been the nicest to Kyron Williams since he's been a Ram. After he fumbled it against the Eagles in the playoffs, you know the Eagles are my least favorite team, one of my least favorite sports franchises ever, the worst fans in sports, but we probably win that game if Kyron Williams was able to hold on to the ball. And I remember saying in that game to my dad after he fumbled, I said, I love Kyron. I love that he grew up a St. Louis Rams fan, but if we lose this game, I want him to find a new team next year. Thankfully, I'm not the GM of the Rams because I would have, out of spite, just an impulse decision, traded him away right after that game. Thankfully, I am not the GM of the Rams, and Les Snead is. Uh, I love Kyron Williams though. Like I said, he grew up a St. Louis Rams fan. He's one of the many great running backs to play for the Rams. You got Marshall Faulk, Eric Dickerson, Todd Gurley, just to name a few. Steven Jackson. There's so many that you can name. I think by the end of Kyron Williams' career, if he's a Ram for his whole career, or at least a majority of it, I think he'll be close to that conversation with them. And he had a great year this past season. Um, I know everyone makes fun of him for fumbling the ball too much, but after that fumble on the goal line against the Niners, that's another time I wanted to lose my mind. But he didn't fumble again the rest of the season after that. So I think that problem is solved. I don't want to jinx it, knock on wood, but I think that problem is solved. And I have Kyron Williams as my fifth favorite running back to ever play for the Rams.
Yeah, I like it. I'll give Kyron Williams an honorable mention. I am a big fan. He's on my fantasy team every year. I love everything he does, but I went a little bit a different way here at number five. Just a major memory for me. I mentioned on this episode I grew up in Dallas, so I'm around Cowboys fans. So at number five, I got C.J. Anderson, someone
Wow.
we mentioned earlier. I
Wow.
remember when we brought him in that 2018-2019 season,
Mm.
and him and Todd Gurley, they just started running over everyone. And Todd Gurley, that's when his knee started to degenerate a little bit on the pro level, unfortunately, at the end of that season. So CJ came in and kind of spelled Todd Gurley a lot of the fact, and really just was a complete monster. And he was great for the Broncos and was really balanced all around back, but he comes to the Rams kind of older and maybe a little heavier than he was previously, and was just a total bowling ball, running over everyone, bouncing off tackles, and just that memory of him running over the Cowboys and then finishing out that postseason with us. That was a great team and a great memory, and I still follow CJ Anderson on Instagram to this day.
I think I do too. I think I also follow him. I
Nice.
thought about him on my list, but I was like, he wasn't a Ram long enough, so I just left him off. But I really did like C.J. Anderson, another former Bronco. We've talked about so many of them today.
Yes.
Him, Tim Tebow, so many of them. But at number four, I have, in my opinion, the greatest Rams running back of all time, maybe the greatest running back of all time, period, and that's Eric Dickerson. I know I didn't get to see him play, but this is my dad's favorite player. This is a guy who I've heard nothing but great things about. This is probably my dad's favorite athlete ever. Uh, he holds the record for the most yards in a single season in 1984. If you were to speak to my father, he would not let you forget about that. Every single year a running back has a good year. My dad religiously follows his season to make sure he doesn't break Eric Dickerson's record. And he will also remind you that Eric Dickerson did it in 16 games and now they play 17. So he was very happy when Saquon Barkley did not break it 2 years ago. If I remember correctly, I think my dad went shopping at ShopRite the day after the last game of the season in his Eric Dickerson jersey just to piss off Eagles fans because Barkley didn't break the record. So
I like
I've
that.
always heard good things about Dickerson, so I have him at number four.
Okay, okay, I love that. Number four, I got Todd Gurley.
Hmm.
Just I just mentioned him and CJ Anderson, how they just ran over the competition at the end of that 2018-2019 season, and he was just a guy who came in right away. I remember when we drafted him, they said he's got the knee thing going on, but he was just amazing on that St. Louis Rams team. A team that didn't have a lot going for him offensively, but Todd Gurley got going for him. And once McVay came, he peaked and was, I think, without a doubt, the best running back in football for a couple years there, and was just
Yeah.
playing at such an elite level, scoring touchdowns at an insane clip. And you'll still see that stat pop up every now and again of rushing touchdowns since 2015. And even though
Yeah.
Todd Gurley hasn't played in like 5 years, he's still like top five, top 10 on the list. So shout out Todd Gurley. He was an amazing player. I loved watching him, and I just wish he would have held on as a little bit longer. But unfortunately, the injuries just caught up to him.
Yeah, it's a shame how the injuries were. I remember my friends making fun of me for the Todd Gurley, injuries at the end of his career, and then him ending his career in Atlanta. It was just weird. It was a shame. But at number three for me, I have another Michigan Wolverine, and that is Blake Corum. Blake Corum, I know it's weird to have him over a guy like Eric Dickerson or even have him over Kyron Williams because Williams is the starter. He's the number one running back on the team. But I'm a Michigan Wolverines fan. Blake Corum is one of my favorite Wolverines of all time. He helped us win a national championship a few years ago. So I do have Blake Corum at number three. I do have a question for you. Do you think McDuffie is going to take number 22 from him? Because I'm a little worried about that because I have Blake Corum's
Ooh,
jersey.
I haven't thought about that.
I have Blake
I will
Corum's jersey.
say
I don't know what to do.
I've seen McDuffie mocked in Rams jerseys wearing 21. I don't know if anyone's currently wearing that off the top of my head. Not that I can recall. I could be wrong, but
21.
I'm sure they'll
I can't
figure
think
it
of
out. That
anybody.
I could totally see that though, especially after the big contract, him wanting 22. But I mean, Blake Corum's no slouch. He had a really good year last year, so
Yeah.
I don't know. That'll be something they have to discuss. What number did he wear at Michigan?
Two. So maybe he'll
So
change
maybe
to
he
number
could
two.
switch to 2
Yeah.
and McDuffie could wear 22.
I
Maybe.
wouldn't mind that at all. So
Yeah, that'd be
that would be
cool.
cool. That would be cool. Who do you have it? Did you start with number three or did I start with number three? Did you
You
reveal your
started.
number? Okay, so you reveal your number three.
Number 3, I got a guy I grew up watching, Steven Jackson.
Mm.
It felt like forever he was, our only good player, it felt like. And
Yeah.
he was just such a beast. Kind of, I've heard people compare him like beast mode before beast mode, or
Mm.
compare Derrick Henry to him. And he was a bit of a different skill set than those guys, but yeah, Steven Jackson was just a complete monster and had great hands and was a fantastic fantasy football player for all my fantasy fans out there. And just, a guy I wish could have gotten an opportunity to be on some of the better Rams teams. He kind of came in after the greatest show on turf and was before McVay. So he was really in the thick of it in those rough Rams years and was the really only bright spot through those dark times. But yeah, always will love Steven Jackson. Had his jersey when I was a kid, and we'll never forget him. Another guy I still definitely follow heavily on Instagram to this day.
Yeah, I have him at number two. So I I loved Steven Jackson as a kid, and like you said, he was one of the only good players on the team. No offense to the other guys, but he was one of the only notable players on the team. So yeah, I have him at number two. One of the best St. Louis Ram running backs of all time. Probably, would you say second best St. Louis Ram running back of all time behind Marshall Falk?
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah,
definitely.
because Dickerson was L.A. Gurley was mostly L.A.
I
So
feel like Bettis was LA as well, so I
yeah, he
know he
was.
wasn't here too long, but
Yeah. So I have Steven Jackson at number two. One of my favorite Rams ever. Loved Steven Jackson.
same, same. And I number 2, I got a guy you already mentioned, Eric Dickerson. So
Mm,
definitely a guy I didn't grow up watching, obviously, him playing back in the 80s, but we all know Eric Dickerson. His record still holds to this day. SMU, his college, is really close to me. So always thought about that. There's a really good 30 for 30 documentary about Eric Dickerson and his time with SMU before they got the death penalty, which he was a large part of. But
yeah.
that's okay. Yeah, Eric Dickerson. I think arguably one of the best running backs of all time. Like you said, he was on not the best team either in some ways,
Yeah.
and just got it done. And we didn't have like Joe Montana or some great quarterback back there in the early '80s, and he was still just he holds the record for most rushing yards as a rookie and the most rushing yards in a season by a player. So,
Yeah.
staple running back, NFL legend on top of Rams legend.
Yeah. Absolutely. My favorite Rams running back of all time at number one, you already mentioned him. I have Todd Gurley. He's spoiler alert, one of my favorite Rams ever in any position. I loved Todd Gurley growing up because he was one of the guys that really helped turn this franchise around. Like when we drafted him, we had him and Donald. We drafted them in 2014, 2015, I believe it was. When we drafted them and they were in St. Louis for a little bit and then they were part of the team that went to LA, really helped turn this franchise around along with guys like Jared Goff and Sean McVay and others. So I love Todd Gurley. He's my favorite Rams running back of all time by far.
I like it. Yeah. My number 1 is a guy who I watched a little bit, Marshall Falk. So,
Mm,
St. Louis Rams era. I remember him when I was a kid. Didn't get to see like him in his prime or anything back when we were winning Super Bowls, but 3 straight offensive player of the years from 99 to 2001. One of the best players of all time. Marshall Falk was just crazy. One of 3 players to ever catch 1,000 yards and rush for 1,000 yards in a single season. So, his credentials just go without even being said. And he's, my dad always raved about how great Marshall Falk was and the ultimate receiving running back. You hear them talk about McCaffrey and Gibbs and how great receivers they are, and Marshall Falk and Mike Martz were a big part of really revolutionizing that, along
Yeah.
with Bill Walsh and Roger Craig back in the 80s. So Marshall Falk, a guy I idolized growing up, one of my favorite Rams ever, favorite players ever, and favorite athletes ever.
A lot of people think that he is better than Eric Dickerson. Like I've seen I don't
It's a tough argument to
yeah.
make for
I
sure.
I've seen once in a while I'll see on Instagram top 10 running backs of all time, and Marshall Falk and Eric Dickerson are almost always both in the top 10. This is
Yes,
normally from someone's perspective that's not a Rams fan, so maybe they don't understand the significance of Eric Dickerson's career as much. I would put Dickerson over Falk, but Falk is definitely a top 10 running back of all time. Um, I
I
don't have
typically
him
put
on here.
Dickerson above Falk as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't have him on my running back list just because I never saw him play. But if I saw him play, he for sure would be on here. But moving on to wide receivers, I'll start with number five. Unless you want to start, you want to go at number
Oh,
five?
you can go ahead. Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
My number five's pretty weird one. Was not known for being a Ram. Was not a Ram for a long time. Number 16 before Jared Goff. That's Danny Amendola. I for
Oh,
I for some reason always loved Danny Amendola when he was on the Rams. This was the Tavon Austin, Danny Amendola days. Brian Quick, uh, what the heck is his name? Kenny Britt. Uh, you
yeah.
know that era of Rams wide receivers. They were not the greatest wide receiver core of all time, but they were fun to watch. And Danny Amendola was one of them. I liked him on the Patriots, like I mentioned before, how much I liked Tom Brady and that Patriots team. Danny Amendola was part of that team, but he was also a part of the team I grew up rooting for, of course, the St. Louis Rams. So yeah, Danny Amendola at number five.
I like that. I like that answer. I was a big Danny Amendola fan too. He
Yeah.
didn't quite make my top five list though.
Yeah.
It was a tough list to make. In terms of running backs and wide receivers, Rams have some of the best of all time for sure.
Oh yeah.
Number five, I got a guy who wasn't here long. Another guy who was just here for that Super Bowl run, Odell Beckham Jr.
Hmm.
Someone growing up who I always romanticized, like, man, get this guy on the Rams, please. This guy is just amazing. And I'll always remember that catch he had on the Cowboys, the Odell
Yeah.
catch. He just had one in that flag football tournament thing the other day. He had a classic Odell catch. And he's been working out with Tom Brady, saying he wants to come back, and we need a wide receiver three. And I wouldn't be opposed to bringing Odell into the mix. I know he loves McVay. They got along great, and kind of a guy who his character got brought into question a lot as a player, but when he was here, he fit in great. Cooper Cup loved him, Stafford loved him, McVay loved him, and I loved him too.
Yeah.
And we all remember his Super Bowl performance. He was on his way to winning Super Bowl MVP before Cooper Cup did. He was just dominating the Bengals. They had no business in that game with Odell and Cooper Cup out there. So shout out Odell Beckham Jr.
Uh, a true shame he got hurt in that Super Bowl. We could have seen him win Super Bowl 56 MVP instead of Cooper Cup. That's definitely a possibility. Like you said, he had so many character issues through his career, but none of them happened with the few months he was in LA Ram. So
Right?
that goes to show, how classy and well run of an organization the Rams have been over the last 5 to 10 years. So we've really not had many problems. We've had guys come in here known to be like divas, like Von Miller, OBJ, Akib Talib, guys like that, and then they just were not problems here on the Rams. So I uh I just think that proves why we're such a great organization, a well run organization.
For
At
sure.
number four for me, I have the Rams' current wide receiver one and the best receiver in football, Puka Nacua. Uh, I would have him higher probably if he came before a few of the guys that I'll mention in a bit. But Puka Nacua, in my opinion, is the best wide receiver in the NFL. I know we did that list a few weeks ago. You guys can go check out that episode. It's like episode 19 or 20. Us ranking the best offensive players in the NFL. You had JSN 1 and Puka 2. I had JSN 2 and Puka 1. So, he's a top 2 receiver in the NFL at worst. And that's coming from being a fifth round pick. So I have Puka Nacua at number 4.
Yeah, I also have Puka Nacua number 4. I've got my Puka Nacua jersey that I love to wear. Shout out my dad for buying it for me for Christmas last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you said it all. Puka is our guy, all pro level wide receiver. I think he's definitely a offensive player of the year candidate going into next year. And hopefully he can deliver us a Super Bowl. And I just want to see Puka maybe a little less off the field and a little more on the field. But
Yeah.
I love Puka. I think he's a good kid. I think he's just kind of getting mixed up in that Hollywood life a little bit. And you go from a fifth round pick, kind of an unknown to being a superstar on the best offense in the NFL. It's a big jump. It's a big jump, and he's just got to adjust to it.
Yeah. Um, at number 3, I have another guy who was hurt that year with OBJ. It is Bobby Trees, Robert Woods.
Okay.
Um, he's one of my favorite Rams receivers ever. Loved him in the early LA days. I know that Super Bowl season that we had in Super Bowl 56 was his last year as a Ram. He was hurt for most of that year, tore his Achilles or his ACL, I forget what it was, but he was a huge part of what got us to the Super Bowl in Super Bowl 53. Uh, I wish that him and Cooper Cup could have played in a Super Bowl together, because the one we
Right.
lost, Cooper Cup was hurt, and the one we won, Robert Woods was hurt. So wish we could have seen the two of them play together in a Super Bowl. But I have Robert Woods at number 3.
Yeah, I love that pick. I didn't have him on my list. These top three, man, I had a hard time differentiating between the three of
Mm.
them. But number 3, I had Torrey Holt.
Mm.
Get my man in the Hall of Fame. Definitely a
Yes.
player as a young Rams fan. I remember watching the Pro Bowl one year as a kid. This was back when the Pro Bowl was still kind of cool to watch.
Mhm.
And Torrey Holt was like our only Rams Pro Bowler, and I thought that was really cool. One of the best receivers of all time. Fun fact for you: in the 2000s decade, like 2000 to 2009, Torrey Holt led all wide receivers in receiving yards.
Wow.
So that includes Marvin Harrison, Terrell Owens, Randy Moss, all those guys. And our guy, Torrey Holt, was number 1. So he needs to get in the Hall of Fame. It's long overdue. And I won't stop saying it until he's in.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. He should be a Hall of Famer. It's been a few times now where he's been snubbed of a Hall of Fame spot. Uh, at number 2, I have a guy who played for both the St. Louis and LA Rams, and that is Tavon Austin.
Okay.
I I was a huge Tavon Austin fan. I didn't even know about the viral college highlight tape on YouTube from West Virginia. I didn't even know about that. I just loved Tavon Austin. I had his jersey when I was little. He was really exciting to watch. I know a lot of people think he became kind of a bust. I don't agree with that. I just think there was only so much he could have done with, Sam Bradford was always hurt. Then we had Nick Foles. We had Case Keenum. We had Austin Davis. We had every quarterback you could think of, in that QB carousel that we had in the final years in St. Louis. So I always thought Tavon Austin was a really good player, and he was one of my favorites. I have him at number 2.
Yeah, yeah, I liked Tavon Austin too. Shout out Stedman Bailey too. Tavon
Yes.
Austin's boy, his West Virginia teammate and St.
Yes.
Louis Ram teammate. I loved that group growing up. Number 2, this was tough for me, but I have your guy Cooper Cup.
Mm.
The ultimate Rams player when we talk about his Super Bowl MVP. I don't like to think about Cooper Cup because just the fact of him being on the Seahawks and them winning the Super Bowl with him, oh, it makes me sick. It makes me want to lose my lunch. But I loved Cooper Cup. His season was, in my opinion, the best wide receiver season in NFL history. He got snubbed of MVP. I don't care what anyone
Oh,
says.
absolutely.
He should have been league MVP that year, but it's okay because he won Super Bowl MVP. So, definitely someone I'd like to see get honored with a number retirement or something someday. But one of my favorite players ever, and someone I hate to see him gone for sure.
Yeah, I have him at number one. Where if you've watched 5 seconds of this podcast before, you know Cooper Cup is my favorite ever. I named my dog after him. Uh, I love Cooper Cup. I got the signed jersey right here. He's probably my favorite athlete of all time. Uh, he's a Los Angeles sports legend, and he's a Rams legend. Greatest season a wide receiver's ever had, and like you said, he should have been the 2021 NFL MVP. I will never I will never stop saying that. I will never change my mind about that. Aaron Rodgers had a great year, but he did not deserve MVP over Cooper Cup because Aaron Rodgers was not as valuable to the Packers as Cooper Cup was to the LA Rams that year. I will die on that hill. The true 2021 NFL MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Triple Crown winner, Super Bowl MVP, and playoffs MVP too because he had 2 touchdowns against the Bengals, the Niners, and the Bucks that year, and he had a
Wow,
touchdown against the Cardinals. So that's
crazy.
7 postseason touchdowns in one postseason. Most guys don't get that in a career. He had it in one postseason, and he was 20 yards away from breaking Megatron's record for the most yards in a single season in history, not including playoffs, but then he shattered that record in the playoffs. He holds the record still for the most yards in a season, including playoffs, with over 2,400 yards. That's unheard of. So, one of the best uh, peaks a wide receiver has ever had, and the best single season wide receiver has ever had, belongs to number 10, Cooper Douglas Cup.
I love it. I love it. I love that take. That was great. Number one for me, just this was tough to put him above Cooper Cup, but I got old school guy Isaac Bruce, my guy, another Super Bowl legend. His touchdown to beat the Titans when we got the ball back, 2 minutes and some change left. Kurt Warner goes back and he's got Isaac Bruce downfield and he goes all the way for the touchdown. We hold the Titans off just long enough for us to win. And Isaac Bruce, in my opinion, he's one of the most underrated wide receivers in NFL history. He never quite gets his just due when you talk about the best wide receivers of all time. And you very rarely hear Isaac Bruce names get mentioned there, but he was great and dominant, and he dominated before Kurt Warner. He dominated with Kurt Warner and won his Super Bowl, and he dominated after Kurt Warner with Mark Bulger. So just
Yeah.
the pinnacle of the Rams. I like to pretend he didn't go to San Francisco that last year or two when I was a
Mhm.
kid, but I loved Isaac Bruce so much, man. He was another guy who had to wait too long to get in the Hall of Fame.
Every great Rams receiver just has to go to one of our rivals at the end of his career. Cooper Cup,
Right.
Isaac Bruce, just has to happen apparently. It's very
Yeah.
annoying. Um, maybe one day one of these great receivers on one of our rivals will go to the Rams to end their career. Maybe JSN could come on over and join Puka Nacua. No, I know
Bring
that's not.
Brandon Ayuk over here. I'll take him as wide receiver three.
Yeah, why not? Just bring them all over at this point. Why not? But yeah, I think Isaac Bruce is the best Rams receiver of all time. Cooper Cup had obviously the best season, but career wise, it's Isaac Bruce for sure. Moving on to quarterbacks, the final position until we get to our top five Rams of all time. Uh, you go number five first for your quarterbacks.
Okay. All right. So starting off, I had a guy that, of course, we both grew up watching, Sam Bradford, number eight.
Sammy B.
Yeah, I always loved Sam Bradford, and he came into a tough situation, and I just never feel like, just like when I mentioned Tony Romo earlier, Sam Bradford, had it not been for injuries and circumstance, he could have been a much better player than he ended
Oh
up
yeah,
being. He won Rookie of the Year, if memory suits me, with the
he
Rams,
did.
and
Yeah,
just a player as a kid who I remember being a kid when we drafted him, thinking like, okay, this is going to be our guy, and he was a great quarterback. I hated to see him go. I did root for him, when he was on some of those other teams, and played some good football, both with the Rams and after the Rams. Maybe not the best quarterback of all time, but sentimental guy. Grew up watching him. So Sam Bradford, number five.
yeah. I have your boy Kurt Warner at number 5, and I would have
Oh,
him way higher, but I never got to see him play. And when he
right.
retired, I was really little, and he was a Cardinal, so it was like division rival. I love him, but we were talking about this a little earlier. Uh, it feels like his relationship with the Rams is really weird. Uh,
Yeah.
it because they cut him, if memory suits me, in like 2005 or something, 2004,
Yeah, it was I think '03 actually,
03. That makes
and you went
sense.
to the Giants.
Yeah. So I had the jersey you're wearing right now, that Kurt Warner jersey. I had that jersey in elementary school. I had the same exact one because, like we mentioned, Rams weren't that good when I was in elementary school, so there weren't too many players I could get a jersey of. So I was like, you know what? Let me just get one of the all-time great Rams. At that time, before the Aaron Donald days when I was in elementary school, I would argue Kurt Warner was the greatest Ram of all time. Uh, you know, we could make a whole episode going over the greatest Rams of all time, honestly. And Kurt Warner, Eric Dickerson, Isaac Bruce, Marshall Faulk, they'd all be up there. But yeah, I mean, I've heard nothing but great things, stories of Kurt Warner, so I have him at number 5.
Yeah. Love Kurt Warner, definitely. Number four, I got a guy who was here for a very short time. But a guy I got a lot of love for, Baker Mayfield. Another guy like Josh Allen, I'm hoping maybe could come back someday. I don't know how
I would
realistic
love
that
that.
is.
I
But
would love
yeah, we got to find an heir to Matthew Stafford someday. And I would have loved to see it be Baker Mayfield, but he had to go start, and I don't blame him for that. He's a starting quarterback, and he was a guy that the NFL gave up on, just like Sam Darnold, and he didn't win the Super Bowl. But I think he's capable of playing at least as good as Sam Darnold played
Oh yeah,
last season. Baker Mayfield is a much more talented quarterback than Sam Darnold, and I
for sure.
loved his time with the Rams. He didn't have, the most memorable stint, but remember on Christmas, he dropped 50 on the Broncos, which was
Mhm.
cool, really entertaining game. And then his historic game against the Raiders, that was a really cool memory, and which was a not so fun year, but he comes in after what, like a day or two of being with the
2 days,
Rams, and
yeah, less than
yeah,
two
comes
days.
off the bench and delivers a historic fourth quarter comeback in what was a great memory in a not so great year. So
Yeah.
shout out Baker Mayfield.
I also have Baker Mayfield at number 4, my fourth favorite Rams
Okay.
quarterback of all time, which I did not think there was any way you were going to have him on here because I know there's Warner, there's,
It's
Stafford.
tough to choose a little bit when it comes to Rams quarterbacks,
Yeah,
honestly. We
yeah.
haven't had the
'Cause
best luck outside of the top few.
I've only seen a few good ones.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna put
No,
John Wolford
same.
on here.
Honestly,
So
same.
so
Right.
yeah. So Baker was signed that Tuesday and then played that Thursday. I remember the first drive John Wolford played. I think he threw a pick or he went 3 and out or something. And then they put Baker in and we won the game. So I will always love Baker Mayfield. I was a huge fan of him in college, then in Cleveland, and now on the Bucks. And if I'm Les Snead and Matt win or lose the Super Bowl, no matter what happens this year, Stafford, I believe this will be his last year. I would love for I could be wrong about this, but I think Baker has one more year left on his contract with the Bucks.
I have no idea.
If that's the case, I'm sure Baker Mayfield would love to play under Sean McVay. If
Yeah.
Stafford retires, go out and get him. He should be our next
Yeah.
quarterback. I thought I would have loved to keep him as our backup, but like you said, he deserves to be a starter. He's a top 15, top 10 quarterback in football.
For
If
sure.
and no disrespect to Sam Darnold, but if Sam Darnold can win a Super Bowl, I think Baker Mayfield can, 100%. So I would love to get Baker Mayfield in horns, especially because my favorite number is 6. I wanted to get a Baker Mayfield jersey so badly when he was on the Rams, but they gave him number
Same.
17 for whatever reason. So I think who was number 6 at the time? Tomlinson or something was number 6. One of our special teams defensive guys was
Ray
number 6.
Tomlinson.
Yeah, yeah, Trey Tomlinson. So yeah, I have Baker at number 4.
Okay. Wow. Number three, I got your boy Jared Goff. I got a lot of love for Jared Goff. I won't lie, it's a bit of a love-hate relationship even to this day. I loved his period here. I really thought he was gonna be the guy, to get us that Super Bowl.
Me too.
And I think he could have been potentially, but it just seems like he just hasn't quite figured it out, and I think we needed that quarterback upgrade with Matthew Stafford. And I did like Goff, but I was ready for him to go. So it's a tough one for me. I know you really like Jared Goff, but it was a love hate relationship for me. So I think three is appropriate place for him.
Yeah, number 3, I have a guy you already mentioned, Sam Bradford. My friends and I joke about him all the time because I have a lot of friends who are Eagles fans. He was an Eagle for a bit. He was a Ram. He was Offensive Rookie of the Year in 2010. I loved Sam Bradford as a kid because he was like my first favorite Ram. Uh, Him, Tavon Austin, those guys were some of my favorites. I know he didn't do anything to make the Rams like a contender or a playoff team because he couldn't stay healthy, which obviously isn't his fault. But I truly believe if he could stay healthy and he didn't have Jeff Fisher as his coach, Sam Bradford could have been a true elite quarterback in the NFL. I really do believe that. He had all the talent in the world, and I wish he really got more of a fair chance with not Jeff Fisher as his head coach. So Sam Bradford at number 3 for me.
I like it. Shout out Coach Fisher. I actually met him at the airport last year at my job. He was a really
Really?
nice guy. I did, yeah, I did meet him in person. He was really nice. I recognized him. He was trying to dine in low key and everything. I bet he never gets recognized either, but I totally recognized him. Hey, Coach, can I get a picture with you really quick? He's a super
That's
nice
funny.
guy. It was cool meeting him. Honestly, it was cool. Number two, it's tough for me. I got Matthew Stafford, the great
Hmm.
Matthew Stafford, our league MVP. Maybe my favorite player in the NFL right now. We talked about Matthew Stafford endlessly. I love the guy. Thank God he's coming back next year. I'm praying he can win us our second Super Bowl, and who knows? If he somehow wins another Super Bowl or another MVP or all the above, he might creep his way even higher on this list someday.
Hmm. I was curious to see who you were going to put in your top 2, what order you were going to do. Um, I have my boy Jared Goff at number 2. Very tough for me to sit back and, really grasp the fact that he's not my favorite Rams quarterback anymore. Um, and spoiler alert, the guy that was traded for him is my favorite Rams quarterback of all time, Matthew Stafford. I never, ever, ever thought that I would be sitting here 5 years later or however long it's been and say that I ended up liking Stafford more than Goff. But he's won us a Super Bowl. He won an MVP. There's only so much you can say about Matthew Stafford. He's one of the best quarterbacks of all time. I think he's a top 10 quarterback of all time.
Wow.
But Jared Goff, I will say this. I've been waiting to share this opinion this whole episode because I was waiting for his name to get brought up. Jared Goff is so disrespected in the Rams fan base. I hate it. I hate it. Not all Rams fans, because you and I both like Jared Goff, but a lot of Rams fans, I would say at least 90% of Rams fans, a lot of you watching this, don't like Jared Goff because he didn't play well in Super Bowl 53. He didn't have a good last year with the Rams, and he just wasn't the guy to bring us a Super Bowl, and Matthew Stafford was. So a lot of people just kind of, we got Stafford and it was like, all right, let's just throw Goff to the side, and we don't worry about him anymore. He didn't do anything for us. He sucked. That's not true, because without Jared Goff, the Rams would not be where they are today. And I truly do believe that, because him, Sean McVay, Todd Gurley, Aaron Donald, and all those guys that really turned this franchise around. Because from 2005 to 2016, the Rams were one of the worst franchises in football. And we drafted Jared Goff. He started, and his first year as a starter, he brought us to the playoffs and won our division with an 11-5 record. His second year as a starter, we went to the Super Bowl with him. And his last 2 years weren't great with the Rams, but I'll always have love for Jared Goff. He's one of my favorite Rams of all time, and I have him right behind Stafford for my favorite quarterbacks of all time.
I respect that for sure. I like that take. Jared Goff does get a lot of hate, for sure. Number one, it was tough for me to put him above Stafford, but I got my guy Kurt Warner. I'm rocking the
Mhm.
Kurt Warner jersey today. One of the most underrated players in NFL history. Um, I do think right now I would rank him above Matthew Stafford all time. He's got two league
Wow.
MVPs, both with the Rams. Won the Super Bowl with the Rams. Won Super Bowl MVP. Was just an amazing player and was someone I always idolized growing up. He was the face of the Rams to me when we won the Super Bowl the first time around, and he went to the Cardinals and had his little stint there, and I actually rooted for the Cardinals when he was with them because he was still my favorite player. And I actually have a Kurt Warner Cardinals jersey. Crazy enough, I was
Really?
rooting. I do, yeah. I was rooting for them big time when they lost to the Steelers in the Super
Mm.
Bowl. But Kurt Warner, shout out to him, legend. He has like the craziest yards in the Super Bowl. Like I think besides Tom Brady, Kurt Warner literally has like the most yards ever in the Super Bowl
Wow.
passing. So shout out him. I could say endless things about him, but I got him as my number one quarterback.
Wow. That's awesome. Definitely the best Rams quarterback of all time until Stafford gets ring number two and passes him after this year. Uh, let's move on to the final top five that we have. Just all time Rams. Doesn't matter what position, just our favorite Rams of all time. Number five for me, we just talked about him, Jared Goff. One of my favorite Rams quarterbacks ever, one of my favorite Rams ever. I have a few Goff jerseys still that I hold on to. I made a video on the JTSN channel the other day with me and my Jared Goff jersey, just saying, like, how much I love Stafford, but you can't forget about Jared Goff. So I have him at number five.
I love that. Number five, I got your boy Cooper Cup.
Hmm.
I still am so sad that he's on the Seahawks, but I'll always say, had he and Todd Gurley been healthy for that Super Bowl we lost against the Patriots, I think it would have been a completely different game. So, shout out Cooper Cup.
There's so many what ifs in the last few years for the Rams. What if Gurley and Cup were healthy against the Patriots? What if we never got rid of Cup? There's so many what ifs. It sucks, but uh, another guy you literally just mentioned. For me at number four, I have Todd Gurley, my favorite Rams running back of all time, one of my favorite Rams of all time. We talked about him plenty enough already throughout this episode, so not much to say. But one of the greatest Rams running backs of all time, in my opinion. I think I'll leave this up to you. Is he the third or fourth best Rams running back of all time? Do you think Steven Jackson's better than him all time?
I do think Steven Jackson's
Mm,
better than him all time. He's our franchise leading in rushing yards, even
true.
above Eric Dickerson and Marshall Faulk. So I do think Steven Jackson's better all time, unbiasedly.
Fair. Very fair. But yeah, I have Todd Gurley, number four.
Number four, I got Isaac Bruce. So I talked a lot about him already. Our best wide receiver of all time, one of the best wide receivers of all time, and one of my favorite players of all time for sure.
Yeah. At number three for me, I hated putting him this low because he's the greatest Ram of all time, but I have Aaron Donald at number three.
Wow.
Uh, he's my favorite defensive Ram of all time, of course. He was your favorite defensive Ram of all time. We revealed that earlier in this episode. But yeah, he is, in my opinion, the second best football player of all time behind Tom Brady. I
Wow.
think I think if you count any position, just how good was this player at their position. I think he's the best defensive football player of all time, and I think he's the second best football player ever, only behind Tom Brady. So yeah, I have him at number three.
All right, number three, I got Marshall Falk. So,
Mm.
guy we already talked about a lot, someone I loved growing up. There was a really good John Madden quote back in the day that he said, Superman doesn't wear an S, he wears a 2-8 across his chest. So, shout out Madden, always coming with the hot quotes.
That's sick. I love that. Number two for me, my favorite quarterback ever, Matthew Stafford. We all know who number one is going to be, but I wanted to wear Stafford's jersey today because he's my favorite guy on the team right now. He's the reigning MVP. The only Rams MVP I've ever seen. I wasn't alive yet to see Kurt Warner. So, one of the greatest Rams I've ever seen. I think after we win the Super Bowl this year, he'll be considered the second best Ram of all time behind Aaron Donald, maybe.
I
It's a
think that's
debate we
fair.
could have a year from now if we win Super Bowl 61. Maybe we can have that debate, the best Rams ever. But uh, yeah, I have him at number two.
Okay. Number two, it was tough for me, but I did put Aaron Donald. So,
Mm.
like you said, maybe the best defensive player of all time. I hate to see him gone. I hate it every year. I'm a big Mavericks fan, and the only thing I can really equate Aaron Donald being gone to is Dirk being gone, or sadly
I
Luca.
was gonna,
Now
yeah,
that we
Luca.
have Luca gone, it's still weird. Shout out the Lakers. I love LeBron and Luca too. Maybe my favorite athlete outside of my number one on my list.
Yeah, at number one for me, we all know who it is. My favorite athlete of all time, uh, Cooper Cup. Uh, like I said earlier, named my dog after him. Not to make this depressing, but when the Rams won the Super Bowl, I was going through a very hard time, just like in my life, like mentally and just like with everything. And I genuinely believe like that night, Cooper Cup kind of like saved me, which sounds really dramatic, but I just think that it just like he is so important to me. And like a lot, like my friends like joke about like how like I that what the term that people my age use now is glazing when they say I glaze Cooper Cup. I don't think it's glazing. I think it's just giving the guy the respect he deserves. Uh, Cooper Cup is my favorite athlete of all time, my favorite Ram of all time, my favorite football player of all time, whatever you want to call it. One of my favorite people ever, and he doesn't even know I exist. But yeah, I love Cooper Cup. Named my dog after him. He's one of the best Rams of all time, in my opinion. Best receiver season ever. I could go on and on. We could be here for another 24 hours of me going on and on about Cooper Cup, but he is my number one favorite Ram of all time.
I like that. I love Cooper Cup too. And number one, I got my guy Kurt Warner. Like I said, two-time league MVP, Super Bowl champion. I think one of the most underrated quarterbacks of all time. He when he came into the league as an undrafted free agent, he goes to the Arena League, Iowa Barnstormers, balls out, and then comes to the Rams. And Trent Green goes down, comes in right away and has just like the most incredible season. Wins league MVP, wins Super Bowl MVP, comes back, wins another league MVP. We get cheated by the Patriots in the Super Bowl, or he'd have another ring. And then he just finished it out in a really memorable way with the Cardinals. And like you said, I could talk about Kurt Warner forever. Maybe my favorite athlete of all time, right up there with LeBron James. And I just think he was, really great player looking up to growing up. Just everything you want to try to emulate as a young athlete. Underdog. I've seen his American Underdog movie. I don't know if you've seen that, but I love his story and there will never be another Kurt Warner to go from a grocery stalker to Super Bowl and league MVP. It's an even crazier story than Sam Darnold.
Yeah, there will never be another Kurt Warner, like you said. It's a great number one to have because he's one of the best Rams of all time and your favorite Ram of all time. So yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for this episode 23 in the books. This was a long one. If you watched till the end, then shout out to you. You're a true fan. You can follow us on Instagram. It's right down here. Ramblin Rams on Instagram. You can also follow the JT Sports Network, which is JT Sports Network on Instagram. Also, follow us on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. JTS Network is the main one we have. I'm also on X. James Torillo 24, I think I am. I don't know if you're on X, but I just made those
I'm
accounts.
not.
Yeah, I just made the accounts, so I'm not that, active on there unless I'm posting about sports. So if you want like old Rams highlights, you're ever looking for those, definitely give us a follow. So yeah, this has been episode 23. Any last thoughts, Jordan?
Nope, just getting ready for the draft, and we'll see if we get any Rams news here over the next couple of weeks. I'm still got my ears peaked up, and I'm hoping to hear some wide receiver news. I'm dying every day scrolling through my phone, waiting to see an update on who we end up getting to play wide receiver three for us.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see if we draft Makai Lemon or we go out and sign a free agent to pair with Devontae Adams and Puka Nakua and Kentata Mumfield and see if maybe Xavier Smith comes back. Who knows? We'll see. I know Tutu Atwell's gone, but we'll see. But you'll have to watch the next episode of Ramblin' Rams to find out who we get and find out all the inside info and the one of the best sources out there for Rams football. So this has been the Ramblin' Rams podcast, episode 23. We will see you guys next week.